What is up, winning team? Hello, welcome or welcome back. And we are continuing in our deep dive into physics, modern physics, quantum science, and the fourth dimension as part of our current book series we're doing. And at the moment, we're reading a very interesting article by a woman by the name, or a scientist, I should say, by the name of Sabine Hossenfelder, who is questioning the validity and the trustworthiness of a lot of believed theories in modern science. One of the key things that she's been discussing, and she's getting a lot of backlash, she's gotten backlash from the scientific community for, is simply for pointing out the fact that a lot of this science, a lot of this modern science that we're all trusting and putting all of our eggs in the basket of, is being built and continued off of theories that don't necessarily have empirical support, empirical evidence. What does that mean? Essentially, potentially being built off of a whole load of nothing, which is the exact opposite of what we're supposed to believe about science. And we're now continuing as she talks about our inability or maybe even unwillingness to limit the influence of social and cognitive biases in scientific communities is a serious systemic failure. So we introduced all those ideas and exactly what that means in the previous part. This is a whole part of a whole series, which is going to be linked in the playlist down below, along with the book. It will also be linked in the playlist. You can find this paper on her video, which I'm going to put at the end. Will probably be the next video after this one, because this will be the last video, I think. But the end of these videos, and then we'll continue in the last couple chapters of the book. If you want to hear more, if you want to more of an understanding, go there. Otherwise, we're just going to get straight back into it. For those of you who already know what's going on, the rest of you catch up to your homework, okay? So she goes on to say, we don't protect the values of our discipline. The only response I see are attempts to blame others. Well, this was not what I was expecting. So this is going to get fascinating. Let's go. The only response I see are attempts to blame others. So just to remind ourselves, especially because this might be your first video, we talked about how she said before, if scientists are selectively exposed to information from like-minded peers, if they are punished for not attracting enough attention, and if they face hurdles to leave a research area when its promise declines, they can't be counted on to be objective. And so that's what we were talking about in the previous video. And so we're basically critiquing all the reasons and all the things that affect the science. So rather than us acknowledging those things, she's saying, because she said, and we've just accepted that this is the situation we're in and that's where we're at. Now she's going on to say the only response she's seeing to this issue of the biases is to blame others, funding agencies, higher education administrators or policymakers, but none of these parties is interested in wasting money on useless research. They rely on us, the scientists, to tell them how science works. Exactly my point. And that's exactly what I'm saying. That's what's crazy. So they're actually gaslighting the hell out of people. Yo, this is so much information. Okay. I'm saying it like that because for those of you who've been here, this is the fourth video. Okay. So I'm taking all of this in for the first time. A lot of this is new to me. Although I knew science was sketch. That's why I knew when I was done with my degree, I wasn't going further because I knew I was going to be selling my soul. And to me, and by the way, I do have a whole playlist on what it actually means to sell your soul to the devil. You can go and check that out. But what I mean, the basis of selling a soul is when you're prepared to come away from your morals and values or to exchange them for some other type of gain, is when you know you're starting to sell your soul. So I'm not selling my soul. I was like, I'm out of here. And I went on to become a professional choreographer. Start my own creative arts company. We don't protect the values of our discipline. So funding agencies, higher education administrators. Now, there is a degree to which you can as a scientist kind of blame what did she say? What was the word she used specifically here? Funding agencies or we can to a degree blame them, not in the sense that we can, but obviously, like I said, the money has to come from somewhere, the resources has to come from somewhere. So it is an issue. But then the higher education administrators or policymakers is interesting. Anyways, but none of these parties is interested. They rely on the scientists to tell them how science works. Exactly. So like I said, this is the funny nature about being a scientist, right? Is that we are the ones who have to be the ones to explain to others why what we're doing makes sense. If anybody wants to invest in me, I just want to say, I think I'm a great investment out there for research. Just putting that out there. If I don't know who comes across my videos, okay? Just saying. or whatever research lab, and absolutely obliterate so much of current scientific research, which is why I'm obsessed with this stuff, because I'm like, I feel like I could disprove a lot of stuff if I had the money and the resources. So here we go. We don't protect the values of... Where are we? I offered examples for the missing self-correction. Aha! From my own discipline. It seems reasonable that social dynamics is more influential in areas starved of data, so the foundations of physics are probably in an extreme case. But at its root, the problem affects all scientific communities. Last year, how am I only finding out about this now? Last year, the Brexit campaign in the US presidential campaign showed us what post-factual politics looks like. So this concept of post-factual is really interesting. I've never heard that phrase before. A development that must be utterly disturbing for anyone with a background in science. Ignoring facts is futile, but we too are ignoring the facts. There's no evidence that intelligence provides immunity against social and cognitive biases. Exactly. Let's say it again for the people in the back. There's no evidence that intelligence provides immunity against social and cognitive biases. Thank you, Sabine. You're my queen. She's my queen right now. Queen Sabine, thank you for saying what needed to be said. Let's say it again, you guys, because you guys need to drill this into your skulls, because everybody loves to like look at us in the science community like, oh my gosh, they're so intelligent, they're so trustworthy. And like I see this happen all the time, right, on the news. This is why I have a whole playlist about the media and why you're not to be trusted in. I have a playlist about basically everything at this stage, right? So go and check that out. And one of the things they use to discredit people, so like say, for example, I say something that goes against the others, we talked about this discredit strategy, that's where I actually talk about it in detail, is they'll say, so-and-so, we have Dr. So-and-so from the Institute of Health and Medicine from Harvard on the call today to tell us why you should listen to everything the government is telling you to do. Right? That's what they do. That's what they do, because then if there's me, they could have me on the call and then they'll be like, 27-year-old YouTuber chimes in to comment on what Gen Z has to say. You know what I mean? It's the discredit element, and just they utilize that you as a person viewing are going to look at me as an idiot, right? Because I'm a 27-year-old and I'm technically Gen Z. I'm the oldest either the eldest of Gen Z or the youngest millennial. There you go. That's what Gen Z is up to, FYI, everyone. You're gonna look at me and think, oh, this generation, of course, they just want to be mad at everything. They just want to disagree with everything. They just right. But just because somebody's got a doctorate, they're sitting there with a suit on and whatever and what have you, they're automatically trusted. Listen, guys, I'm playing 4D chess. Okay, I purposefully present myself the way that I do, despite the way that my brain is, for a reason. It's to challenge the way that people think and to destroy this idea of trusting in what you see to be always the thing that you can put your trust into, because she's absolutely right. People think if you're perceived to be intelligent, which people just perceive you're intelligent just because you have a degree, just because you've got doctor in front of your name. Just because. It's crazy. Intelligence, there's no evidence that intelligence provides immunity against social and cognitive biases. I need to write this down in my book. Hold on. Sorry, I just find this fascinating because it's something that I personally dealt with, and it's actually something I find interesting, because people will say to me all the time, or will say, oh, people will say in my comments, if you dressed like this or if you did that, people would take you more seriously. So that just tells me that people are so fickle and so lacking in critical thinking that they'll just make a judgment on what they see without going into the nitty-gritty details of it all. So you will and then you wonder why your life is the way it is. You wonder why these people in power get away with what they do, because you don't think into it. You make quick snap judgments and think that you, with your brain, your limited amount of time and your limited amount of knowledge, can make a decision based solely upon what you can see. This is the cognitive bias, right? I love it. So I love that she's pointed this out. So their presence must be our default assumption. Exactly. As I was just saying. And just as we have guidelines to avoid systemic bias in data analysis, we should also have guidelines to avoid systemic bias stemming from the way human brains process information. This means, for example, that we should punish researchers for working in unpopular fields. Oh. Let's read that again. We should also have guidelines to avoid systemic bias stemming from the way human brains process information, which is what I've just been talking about. This means, for example, that we shouldn't punish researchers for working in unpopular fields, filter information using friends' recommendations, or allow marketing tactics, and should counteract loss aversion with incentives to switch fields and give more space to knowledge not already widely shared to prevent the shared information bias. Above all, we should start to take the problem seriously. You better preach, Sabine. You better... She did the damn thing with this paper. She did the damn thing. She did the damn thing. Why hasn't it been taken seriously so far? Because scientists trust science. I can't make this stuff up. Literally, I cannot make this stuff up. Why hasn't it been taken seriously so far? Because scientists trust science. It's always worked, and most scientists are optimistic it will continue to work without requiring their action. But this isn't the 18th century. Oh, you better preach, baby girl. She was like, because remember earlier in the previous page, she was talking about how her colleague was like, in the 18th century, this is whatever. And this is what I'm saying. The fact that we've got all this extra technology. This is what I'm going back to. I keep talking about the times of Noah. Yes, I have a whole playlist on the times of Noah if you want to read about that. I have a playlist about One Piece and Noah and Noah in One Piece. You can also watch that. This is what I'm saying. Like, why is it that every like big, huge change seems to be happening further and further behind in the past? And we're saying we're getting more intelligent. We now have AI that I can literally search to ask AI so many things, and it can put together all this information on the internet into a summary for me on my behalf. And yet we are not making some huge scientific discoveries anymore. This is my problem even with philosophy. I'm like, who are the modern day philosophers? Who are the modern day people that we can say are making a serious impact? But we're all too busy being little sheep. We're all busy being even the scientists themselves, like she said, because it's always worked, and most scientists are optimistic it will continue to work without requiring their action. Let's just continue on following things the way we've always done them. You see how this is the Gen Z side showing from me. I'm like, but the things that you people sometimes be talking about is what we should trust in. Maybe sometimes things do need a change, right? You know, sometimes you need to change the oil. Sometimes you need an oil change. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to upgrade. Sometimes you need to paint the wall again. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to repaint the walls in your house. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need to reinforce. Sometimes you need to bulldoze something altogether and start from scratch with the information you've now gained. Because maybe something that was good for what it was at a certain time no longer is good for what we need now. Maybe something that was okay that we could manage at a certain time, we should have the intelligence and the technology to improve and have better ways to do it now. Just saying, just some thoughts to share here. But this isn't the 18th century. Exactly. Scientific communities have changed dramatically in the past few decades. There are more of us, we collaborate more, we share more information than ever. All this amplifies social feedback, and it's naive to believe that when our communities change, we don't have to update our methods too. This is exactly what I'm saying. You better preach, Sabine. How can we blame the public for being misinformed because they live in social bubbles if we're guilty of it too? You better... Somebody drop the mic. That's the end of the paper. Drop the mic. Oh, I hope you guys didn't just see my... Anyway. Drop the mic. Somebody drop the mic. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. How can we blame the public for being misinformed because they live in social bubbles if we're guilty of it too? And she's talking about collaboration, and that is everything that we have here at the winning team. No, but seriously, that's actually exactly what I'm talking about. And this is exactly what I talk about on the channel. We have to collaborate. We have to think outside the box. We have to go outside what's comfortable. Sometimes it's not that we have to throw out everything that's traditional for the sake that it's traditional or for the sake that it's what's been done. It's like I said, like I literally have just been saying. I'm not going to repeat what I've said because I've said it already. Right? The same issues exist in science, and people just assume because you've been taught to trust scientists implicitly that if somebody identifies as a science or can do whatever, oh, they have to be intelligent. That's not the case at all, right? They don't necessarily have to be. A lot of people, like I say this as a teacher, I'll give you guys a really easy, my analysis, bearing in mind that I teach maths and science, right? I'll give you my analysis of education even. I talk a lot about the education system on my channel, so you guys know. I hate it and I think it needs to be bulldozed. It's one of those things I think needs to be completely destroyed and start from the beginning. Yeah, so one of the things I notice in school, right, with kids is there's a lot of kids who do really well. A lot of the truly intelligent kids never make it that far in school. That's the truth, right? Because they're intelligent enough to question things. So like even when I was at school, right, I used to question a lot of this stuff myself. People say statements like impress the exam. The teachers be like impress the examiner, impress the examiner. I was like, who is this examiner? What are their credentials? Why do I care what they think? And why do they get to make a decision as to what my intelligence level is, right? Who writes these papers? Who makes these papers? Who writes these textbooks? Who gives them the right to write them? Does anybody critique what they're doing? And how does this make overall sense? And let me tell you that nothing changed since then until now as a teacher myself. That's why I work for my own business and I cannot work in a school, is I refuse to work in a system that doesn't make any logical sense to me. And I'm sick and tired of all the times I work with kids who ask smart questions and who think for themselves, because the school system, just like the world, just like society, just like science, favors the people who get in line and follow the rules and only do exactly what you've been told, whether it makes sense or not. And you hear it time and time again. We all heard it even as kids. Why do I have to do this? Well, that's just how we always did things. So no one's stopping to question if it makes sense, right? So it's always those kids who start questioning things. Even the concept of terrible twos, I've talked about how I hate this. Your kid starts asking you, why? They're discovering the world for the first time. Yeah, they're going to have a lot of questions. Sorry that they don't know why everything works. They've been here not even 2 times 364 on a quarter, technically, but 365 days. Give them a break. They're just figuring everything out for the first time. You know what I'm saying? And then we bash that thinking out of kids. We get them to be just like us adults, people that just go along with whatever the society, or a small group of people that we haven't critiqued, we haven't questioned, tell us what to do. And we just run off with what they're telling us to do. This is my issue here. So those kids at school end up being considered bad behaved, end up being considered whatever, end up being considered a nuisance or whatever. And a lot of the time, those are my best kids. You see, with maths and science, those are the kids who are the best at that because they're problem solvers and they're critical thinkers. A lot of the time, the kids who do really well in school are the ones who just know to follow the rules and who just are great at memorizing. Just memorizing. They're great at memorizing and just being told to be and think something else that somebody else is telling them to do. Right? I'll give you guys an example in the world. Will Smith. Right? Because think about it. This guy is somebody who's known to have done really well, and I think he went to an Ivy League, whatever. He's also an actor, right? He's good at following a script, and he's good at doing what he's being told to do. He's good at following and becoming something that somebody else is telling him to do, and just following the way. It just so happens that he's also good at school. I wonder why. Because he's good at following the rules and following what somebody tells him to do, regardless of whether they understand it or not. Because then what happens with maths and science and the kids that I teach, right, is once they get past like the early levels where that you can get away with that, there comes a point where you actually have to have problem solving skills. And that's why everybody struggles with maths and science. Because at a certain point, you have to be able to think for yourself. At a certain point, you can't just regurgitate what you read in the specification. You just can't regurgitate or repeat or think that whatever the 3 steps you took to do that question in your lesson is the same thing you have to do in the exam. And the schools do this on purpose. You get taught all of these topics separately in all these separate different ways, right? But then when you come to the exam, you have a question that has 3 different levels to it. 3 different topics put together. And now you don't have the framework because you ain't got the script for this. That wasn't the script you were given, because there ain't a script for that, because it requires problem solving skills. It requires you not to look at what you did and try to regurgitate and repeat, but to look at everything that you learned as different tools with different functions, with different advantages in your toolbox that you can now use here to solve this problem. And hence why, like I said, people struggle with maths and science. And you find that those kids who are the ones who think for themselves find doing that easier than they find the earlier stages. So most of the time I can push kids who are considered badly behaved. You guys will know, for those of you who are here for the story arc of my job last year, the so-called badly behaved kids, right? They'll end up being working like 4 or 5 years ahead of where they're supposed to be in maths and science. And they'll still be struggling with things like English. You know why? Because English, again, is a bunch of rules. I before E, except after C. If this is this and this is that. If you read is one word in this day, but on another word it's read. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that. So to kids, it's like, why is that there? Sometimes I learned this from doing spelling with the kids. They'll be asking me questions and they'll be like, I don't understand why this word is spelt like this. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. Because it's not even spelt the way that it's said. But we've just accepted that, you know what, let's actually, perfect idea. I wanted to remember an example. Colonel is one of them, right? I just wanted to remember example. Epitome. You tell the kids all these rules about how they're supposed to do these, to say these words, but then as soon as they are now encountered to use those same rules, sound it out, it, but then they do it, and then they're like, oh, actually no, because there's all of these other exceptions to the rule. And then if you're not good at that, you're considered an idiot. How does that make sense? This is what I'm saying. The whole world's viewpoint and society's understanding of intelligence is something I fundamentally disagree with. But anyways, nevertheless, just wanted to point some of those things out because these are my observations, right? And like I said, again, the kids who are good at that, they just follow the rules. They don't question the fact that that's stupid. It will be a kid who says, what's the point of learning to sound all the words out if some of them don't even apply to the words? It's a valid question. And that's why I will have a really good experience with the kids that I've ever taught, because I actually address their questions, right? Other people are like, oh, that's just the way we do it, so you just need to just shut up and like calm down, you're disrupting my lesson. It's like, but they're asking a good question. The chances are other kids are thinking as well, but the other kids are learning what we're all being taught to learn, which is don't ask questions, just follow the rules. If I was born with the way that I think, like 100 years ago or however long ago it was, I'd be getting a lobotomy. Oh my gosh. Anyways, you guys, so that's the rest of the paper. So I think I'm going to try and read the letter. We'll try it. I'll try it out. And then if it works, I'll make a video of me reading it, because she doesn't have the letter anywhere. The letter's in the video. I'm going to put her video out there because go and show Sabine some love, because she ate with this. But can you guys see? Because in the letter, it goes even deeper about like the things, the real reasons why people are doing a lot of nothingness on purpose. So, you guys have to go and check this video out. The next video, so I'll review that and then we'll continue on with the rest of the book. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope I hope we're being critical thinkers. I hope we're opening our mind. The whole concept of why I make my videos and why I double down and I say things even though people think I sound wild is I can love you all enough. Like when I say at the end of my videos, God loves you, I love you, I mean it. I love you enough to help you to expand your thinking. Because I'm like, you need to do it. A lot of our issues in life and a lot of the limitations we foresee are based on our perception of what's around us. And our perception is often limited by our own self because we believe it's not possible. We believe whatever. So, or we have a skewed viewpoint or perspective based on some of the things we've discussed in this. So anyways, you guys, if life's a game, let's play to win. This is crazy. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.